All right, this is the strategic briefing on the Sovereign Shield framework. We're not skimming the surface here. We are going directly into the mechanics of a strategy designed to fundamentally reshape global power. Let's begin. Everything that follows is built on this premise. It's about a shift in the nature of power. The lion, well, that's the traditional dominant superpower, obvious, right? But the wolf pack, that represents something entirely different. A coalition of smaller, coordinated powers. The logic is brutally simple. Brute strength, raw mass, that works just fine when the conditions are favorable. But when the winter of geopolitical instability arrives, it's the resilient, intelligent pack that not only survives, but actually thrives. So what's the core problem this framework is designed to solve? It's what we call the predator's paradox. And it's fascinating when you think about it. A global superpower, precisely because of its immense size and influence, develops a critical vulnerability. Its greatest strength, its sheer scale, eventually becomes a fatal weakness, making it too large, too slow, and too complacent to adopt when the environment changes. And here's what that imbalance looks like in hard numbers. 78-1. That's the economic ratio of the US compared to a nation like South Africa. Now, the Sovereign Shield isn't about trying to match that power head-on. That would be foolish. It's about engineering a smarter system, one that can outmaneuver raw power through flawless coordination and, most importantly, unbreakable trust. This slide illustrates the two competing strategies perfectly. On one side, you've got the apex predator, the superpower. It relies on mass and leverage, things like sanctions, financial pressure, the threat of force. On the other side, you have the master hunter, the coalition. It uses intelligence. It leverages its knowledge of the terrain, its endurance, and perfectly synchronized teamwork. The objective isn't to be stronger, it's to be smarter. So the proposed solution is this hunter's coalition. But let's be very clear, this is not about forming a new empire or becoming the new aggressor. It's a sentinel pack, a 16-nation alliance that is focused purely on defense and creating stability. Let's dig into what that actually means. Now, the language here is incredibly important. Look at the terms. An immunological force doesn't attack, it identifies and neutralizes threats. A living reef is a vast, complex, and inherently defensive ecosystem. You see, an attacker can't just take a bite out of a reef without breaking its own teeth. The goal is to create a new, stable equilibrium, not to become the next predator on the block. So, how do you actually build this kind of unshakable stability? Well, the entire framework argues it comes down to one thing, something called the Diamond Standard. And this is not just a vague mission statement. It is described as the mechanically enforced infrastructure of the entire system. And it all starts with making power deeply personal. This is what's known as the pony-up principle. Here's how it works. Any official who holds significant power must post a personal performance bond. This is typically 40 to 50% of their total personal net worth, and it goes into a restricted trust. That fund is then overseen by a non-political peer audit. Their performance gets evaluated, and any punishment is tailored specifically to their intent. So the key takeaway is this. Personal risk is mechanically welded to public service. There is no separation. And that accountability is precise. It makes a critical distinction. If a leader fails because of a genuine error or just sheer incompetence, the penalty is moderate. They might lose their investment gains to cover the damages from their failure. But if they are caught in what's called systemic deception, we're talking bribery, lying, selling out the national interest for personal gain, the punishment is absolute. They forfeit 100% of their bonded trust fund, no exceptions. And this right here, this is how that integrity is enforced. The judging panel, known as the Peer Audit 11, is randomly selected from a pool of vetted international experts. But the real core of it, the genius of the system, is the zero countryman rule. It means no official is ever judged by someone from their own nation. This design makes bribery a mathematical irrationality. Think about it. Who would you even try to bribe? You have no idea who your judges are going to be. Okay, so with that foundation of absolute mechanical integrity locked in place, what comes next? Well, the coalition then deploys a very specific arsenal of sovereignty. These are the tools, economic, intelligence, and defensive, that are designed to achieve what the framework calls escape velocity, which is breaking free from the superpower's gravitational pull. The financial core of this whole system is a new digital currency called Terra. But here's the key difference. Unlike most currencies, it's not based on faith or government promises. It's backed by a basket of actual, physical, strategic resources controlled by the member nations. This creates a completely independent financial ecosystem, making its massive economy effectively immune to external pressure like sanctions or the weaponization of the US dollar. Now for the defensive strategy. It's called aggressive reciprocity, and you can basically think of it as Newton's third law applied to geopolitics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For instance, if a superpower imposes a tariff, the coalition might create what are called logistical stutters, maybe slowing down the export of a critical microchip that the superpower absolutely needs. It's not a blockade, it's just friction. And another key tool is the mirror protocol. Let's look at a concrete example of this. The source material cites a dispute where the US was threatening tariffs to force the UK to accept chlorinated chicken. Okay, under the mirror protocol, if the US threatens a 10% tariff, the UK immediately applies a 10% mirror tax on, say, US luxury goods. It's a direct one-to-one reflection of economic force. It's not escalation, it is neutralizing symmetry. Finally, you have the intelligence arm. The Heritage Sentinels are an elite group, and their job is to make the coalition's communications completely invisible to superpower surveillance. How do they do it? By going old school. They use unbreakable analog tools like one-time pads. These are codes that are physically burned after a single use. This creates a perfect air gap, making their intelligence network digitally impossible to penetrate. So, what does all this look like in practice? When you take all of these pieces, the financial system, the defensive protocols, the standard of integrity, and you put them together, you create what the framework calls a sovereign synchrony. It's a system where each nation has a specific, defined role, and they all work together in perfect coordination. For example, the manifestos lay out that the UK serves as the financial command center for the Terra currency. A nation like Indonesia, which happens to control 70% of the world's nickel, becomes the mineral fortress. Italy provides the high-end mother machines that are needed for industrial automation. Each nation becomes a vital, interlocking gear in a much, much larger machine. And this, right here, is the most critical takeaway of the entire strategy. The goal of the sovereign shield is not to defeat the superpower. It's not to become a new one. The end game is to create a permanent, stable, and sovereign system that operates on the unbreakable logic of mechanical integrity. It's about restoring balance to the global ecosystem. This is the motto of the Patricia Guard, the Heritage Sentinels. And honestly, it perfectly encapsulates the entire mission. Guard the gate. That's against external pressure. Hold the integrity. That's the internal diamond standard. And maybe most importantly, watch the watchers to ensure the guardians themselves never become the threat. And so, this entire framework leaves us with a pretty profound question. It makes the bold claim that in our modern world, old virtues like trust and honor, they're just not enough anymore to guarantee freedom. It suggests that the only way to be truly sovereign is to build a system where integrity isn't just a value, but a mechanical, verifiable, and absolute certainty.